Welcome into another edition of Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery. We welcome you in on this Friday morning. Today on the show, how many All-Stars will the Braves end up having? When is the right time to extend Max Fried? And how good does Arthur Smith's play calling need to be for the Falcons to have success? We'll talk about all of that. It's Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Hey, good Friday morning to everybody. It's Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. We ask you to head over to youtube.com. Find our page in your search browser, Locked On Sports Atlanta. Subscribe, leave us a comment, tell us what you think. We're also free and available on all of your favorite podcast platforms, Spotify, Odyssey. When you find us, leave us a 5-star review. And, of course, give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Well, the Braves had a very much needed day off yesterday as they get ready to take on the Chicago Cubs starting this afternoon in a 3-game set as they look to extend that 14-game winning streak. I do think they're going to sweep the Cubs this weekend. Cubs are a bad baseball team right now. They don't do very many things well other than their uniforms are kind of nice. Outside of that, they don't do a whole lot well. But as All-Star voting is underway, and if you haven't gone to the Braves Twitter page, you should check out the little promo video that they did for the All-Star game and getting people to vote. They had all the movie posters of the different players and things like that. It's a fun little deal to check out. But how many guys for the Atlanta Braves have a realistic shot to be on the All-Star team? Now, don't forget, Snitker is going to manage the All-Star team this year. So once you get past fan voting and everything, Snitker is going to have a hand in picking what the roster is. So when I look at the Braves roster right now, I think you can look at 7 total names. 7. Yes. Now, I'm not saying that all 7 of these guys are going to make it, but I think that there are 7 names that you look at and say, okay, those guys are having an all-star caliber season. So let's start with Ronald Acuna Jr., who the big thing for Ronnie is whether or not he's played enough games. Now, he may end up with the fan vote when all is said and done. We don't really have any early results just yet on the fan vote, but Ronnie's becoming a popular enough national player that it wouldn't surprise me with the season that he's having, with the power, the speed, the batting average. He still does everything great. I know he missed a bunch of time, but still, he's going to have a pretty good number of games played by the time we get to the All-Star game that he may get enough love and be in that starting outfield. Dansby, we'll talk about Dansby in a minute, just as far as my locks go, because I can't imagine Dansby Swanson not being on the All-Star team this year. Given the year that he's had, both offensively and defensively, would be hard to imagine that he's not an All-Star. I don't know if he's going to start. I don't know if he has that kind of reputation, but certainly he will be on the roster. Kenley Jansen's another guy, second in the NL in saves right now. You know, Josh Hader's had a monster year. He just had a streak where he went like 40 consecutive innings without giving up a run and then gave up a couple of home runs and had that snap. But he's been outstanding this year, leads all of baseball in saves. But Kenley Jansen's had a really good season. What was it? 14 for 14 to start the season, had a bump in the road, blew 3 saves in a row, and then came back and he's gotten 4 more saves since then. But he's been locked down efficient for the Atlanta Braves this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Snitker doesn't put him on the roster. Max Fried is another guy. Look, we're going to talk about Max Fried coming up in the next segment. Max Fried has been outstanding. And when you look at some of the numbers, Fried right now tied with the team lead in number of wins, an under 3 ERA, 80 innings pitched with 75 strikeouts and only 13 walks. That's an absurd number that he has going right now. And one thing, and I'm going to mention the next guy, and then we'll talk about the scope of the National League. Kyle Wright is another guy who has a legitimate shot. You're talking about a guy right now, 7 wins, 2.5 ERA, 80 strikeouts in 73 innings, almost 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been outstanding. Now, one thing about pitching in the National League this year is think about some of the big name pitchers. You know, Kershaw's had a pretty good year. He's got 4 wins, though, for the best team in baseball. His ERA is minuscule. Maybe he gets in, maybe he doesn't. Obviously, Jacob deGrom is not going to be part of the All-Star festivities. He's hurt. Steven Strasburg, a guy that, okay, maybe in years past, but he's hurt. He's not around right now. Max Scherzer's another guy who his numbers would probably qualify him to be an All-Star. But, you know, you're talking about a guy who probably doesn't come back and start pitching until sometime in July. if I'm the Mets, I don't want him throwing in the All-Star game. I know he's a Bulldog, and I know he's probably going to want to be there and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not 100% sure that I'd want Max Scherzer even pitching if he was healthy and available. He's had an outstanding start to his season, no doubt about it, and would probably be on the team. But I'm not sure that they want him. I'm not sure if I'm the Mets manager that I would want him going out there pitching. So if you start to take away some of those other big names and things like that, there is definite potential for the Braves to find one or both of their starting pitchers on this roster right now. And Kyle Wright has been outstanding. Max Fried has been outstanding. I mean, when you go across scope of baseball, those guys are toward the top as far as leaders and wins. Obviously, both excellent ERAs in today's modern day baseball. When you're under 3, especially when you're like 2.5, like what Kyle Wright is, those are some outstanding numbers. Let's save my long shot wild card, but maybe deserves a look-see. Austin Riley, first off, would be the next guy. Now, I don't know if he's going to get in the vote over Nolan Arenado or Manny Machado. Those guys are typically going to be the high-profile names that are going to get on. But Riley leads the National League in home runs. I would expect him, and I would expect Snit to put him on the all-star roster. That's a crowded position that the third base spot has, right? I mean, you've got 3 top-tier guys in Riley, Machado, and Arenado, all guys that are having big years and all guys that are some of the leaders of their franchise. So there'll be a spot for Riley, especially as he's leading the league in home runs. It'd be almost impossible to imagine that he wouldn't make the all-star team. It's not like you couldn't have 3 first basemen on your all-star roster. And then the one wild card that I don't think that will make it, but you could make a case for how good he has been. As crazy as this may sound, but AJ Minter. If you look at Minter's numbers, 2-0, 0.98 ERA in 29 games that he's pitched, 27 and 2/3 innings with 36 strikeouts, which is almost 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has not given up a home run this year, has only issued 4 walks, so he's a 9-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio with only 3 earned runs given up, a .759 whip. He's been outstanding. The problem when you get into AJ Minter and guys like that is the all-star game, right, is typically premier starter, premier closer. A lot of times those guys that do the dirty work through the middle of the game don't get recognition. But what if AJ Minter is sitting on about a .75 ERA with 3 wins by the All-Star break? Would Snitker put him on? Would Snitker add him in there? I don't know. I mean, you got a guy that averages 12 strikeouts per 9 innings, has a few wins out of the bullpen, and has given up next to no runs. It would be hard to imagine. So I'm going to tell you that my locks as far as who's going to be on the All-Star team: Dansby's going to be on the All-Star team, Kenley Jansen's going to be on the All-Star team, Max Fried is going to be on the All-Star team, Austin Riley is going to be on the All-Star team. 4 guys that I think that are locks to make the All-Star team, but it could be as many as 7. All right, speaking of Max Fried, when we get back, when is going to be the right time to extend Max Fried? Because the Braves have a lot of financial decisions that are coming up. We'll talk about that next. It's Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.